said, this morning on Tuesday, it's usually an all-female panel, but we had to change things up just a little bit. And this is because of a report that was released by NACADA yesterday. And this is as far as drug and substance use right here in the country. And of course, the current trends that have been reported, which again forms the basis of conversation today. So we had to have NACADA chair, board chair in us today to just, with us today this morning to just tell us what exactly is happening in the country. Is it more of a policy issue or not? So the question that we're asking, I mean, the focus of conversation this morning is addiction and abuse. We're looking at alcohol, narcotics, prescription meds, and is this a headache for Kenya? So who are my guests this morning? Like I said, we're privileged to be joined by Reverend Dr. Stephen Mairori, who's the NACADA board chair. Good to have you this morning. Quite an early start to the day, huh? You were here before 6 a.m.
Yes,
I mean, all of you.
Yes, I was.
We're here before 6 a.m., so we really appreciate that. And then we have Catherine Muthiani, who is a counseling psychologist. Good to have you as well this morning. Thank you so much for making the time. And Nkatha Mwenda, who's a founder, Sober Living Youth Summit. Good to have you this morning. You're all beautiful and lovely gentlemen. This early morning. And Nkatha, I know this is very personal to you. You'll also be sharing your story as well with us. But I really wonder what the figures, say to you and what they mean to you this morning. But before that, let's just take a look at what exactly is happening on the dailies. And we begin with the Daily Nation, where, again, as always, you can get yourself either a hard copy or a soft copy, and that is by logging to epaper.nation.africa and get yourself access to all our papers, including Daily Nation, Taifa Leo, Business Daily, the East African, among so many other articles. I mean, papers that you can get on there. But the Daily Nation briefly reads, and the headline says, how Raila was caught flat-footed, and this is as far as the 2022 general elections are concerned. And the contest is in the battle to succeed President Uhuru Kenyatta. The push and pull had moved from the campaign trenches to the hallowed sanctums of courtrooms and planning desks of secretariats. And Mr. Odinga and his main challenger, and that is Dr. Ruto, President Ruto, were squaring it out in a dramatic fashion. And of course, just quickly on to what else is said on the front page as far as that story is concerned. On the evening of the August 8th, just hours before polling station opened for what would be one of the most fiercely fought presidential elections, a court sitting in Nairobi overturned an earlier decision to compel the electoral agency to use manual registers to identify voters, and the very late move by a section of Azimio bigwigs to change party agents at 2 a.m. on election day may have just worked against Mr. Odinga. And that story is on pages 6, 7, and 8 of the Daily Nation. And again, this is even as we, are on the road towards marking 1 year since the current government took to power. So what are the hits? What are the misses? And exactly, just a look into the 2022 general election. So pages 6, 7, and 8 is where you can find an in-depth story on the same. But still, on the front page of Daily Nation, alcohol use. And like I said, that is what we'll be talking about this morning on AM Live. So alcohol use addiction up in the last 5 years. And this is according to a report by NACADA, where more Kenyans are consuming alcohol, with 42.4% of current users addicted to it. All right. And again, it continues to say that this is according to a new report, again, like we said, by the National Campaign Against Drug Abuse, that is NACADA, which also states that 3.1 million Kenyans between the ages of 15 and 65 are currently consuming alcohol and are at risk of developing depressive disorders. And that story is on page 12 of the Daily Nation. And like I said, we have NACADA board chair this morning to give us more in-depth into what exactly is happening to our country. So I'm just going to give you, a chance to just comment on the same and just tell us what exactly is happening to our country. So we'll be interrogating the numbers as we continue with the conversation, but just a brief overview of, the report and the numbers and what exactly is happening to our country, and especially the young people between 15 and 24 years. What exactly is happening in this age category?
Well, you see, I think we have a challenge.
Okay, a big one.
A big one.
Okay.
This report was done 5 years, in the period of 5 years, and so launched recently. And I think what we are seeing is that a lot of young people think using alcohol or banky or cat is a cool thing.
Yeah.
And so we're finding out from the report that even as early as 6 years, actually, young children are getting into it. And so it's a worrying trend. It's not been good. So for that period of 5 years, there was definitely a major challenge, and probably we'll be discussing more
as we continue with the conversation. And that's very, very concerning. 6 years, the age of initiation. That's it's just, I mean, unimaginable, because these are very young children still in primary school, but again, know about alcohol. Some have, tasted, been initiated into the same. I wonder what that says.
That tells us questions about our parenting. Because 6-year-old, you are looking at the family setting.
Yes.
7-year-old, 8-year-old, there's a challenge there.
There's a very big challenge.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
All right, and Catherine, I'm just going to throw that to you as well. There are several factors, and even Nakada has listed some of the factors that are leading or contributing to the same. But even before that, there's the use, abuse, and addiction, right? And sometimes we tend to confuse one for the other, right? So do you want to just take us through what these 3 terms really mean? And I'll just take, first of all, your perspective as far as what this report says.
Thank you very much. It's indeed worrying for us as a country to be in this situation. When you're looking at a 6-year-old, well, it's a bit consoling because in the last statistics that Nakada released, it was 4-year-old being the age of onset. But when you're looking at 6-year-old, there's a lot to do with what is it that we are exposing our kids to. Where is our role as a family, as parents, in terms of protecting our kids from the same. Now, in terms of abuse, use, and addiction, many a times we will get to say drug and substance abuse, but currently we look at any use as a possible cause of a problem. Okay. Because the umbrella term that you use is substance use disorders. That as long as you're using, there is that possibility that you can develop a substance use problem. Okay. So for use, it could be you taking 1 or 2 drinks or even 1 drink. But then when it comes to abuse, we are looking at using and engaging in hazardous situation, like you're using and you're coming to work, using, driving. Then also probably somebody uses and they miss to meet their day-to-day activity. But then now when we look at addiction, addiction is a bigger term that incorporates not just the substances, but even other behavioral activities. But for substances now, we look at addiction as being a brain disease, meaning the exposure to the drugs, it's causing some kind of brain damage, which is the one that takes away somebody's ability to have a sense of control, and they keep on compulsively seeking the drug despite the negative consequences that come with it. So it's a continuum. So in the substance use, we look at someone having a mild substance use problem, a moderate substance use problem, and a severe substance use problem, which takes up everything now, the use, the abuse, and the addiction. So the severity of it is what informs us what do we need to do with the people.
I see that, and I hear you. And you see, majority of the times, so addiction is usually considered a disease. But here's the thing, most families, most people, we don't see it as a disease. If anything, we castigate this, but now you watch it to pombe, right? Yes. We just think it's something that you can just turn on and turn off. But really, there's so much, and as far as addiction is concerned. And what the report says, really, that 15 and 65, people, that is 3.1 million Kenyans between the ages of 15 and 65, currently consume alcohol and are at risk, like you said, of developing depressive disorders, which is a very big issue as well. So much in terms of empowering the society and even educating the community as well. What do these numbers mean to you?
Thank you very much. I'm so happy to be here to having such discussions, and very excited that it is Recovery Month. Addiction is a disease, as Catherine has said. We normally speak about you not being alone, that you shouldn't be ashamed. And like you keep saying, it's very personal. It's no longer personal. When I came out openly last year, it was a challenge because I faced the stigma, I faced the fears of what people would say. But as I continue to speak, you know, 1 year down the line, I see the many people who are in treatment, people who are confident to seek out for help and helping people in their communities. So when I look at these figures, it is a starting point, and I like what someone says here: treat drug abuse or lose generation.
That's true.
So it is great that we are having this conversation. It should not surprise us why a 4-year-old or a 6-year-old is using, because we as Kenyans, we need to be frank, we are a drinking nation. Our largest taxpayer, number 2, is a brewer, you know. So these are conversations we can have so that we can come up with the solutions. And in this month of recovery, we are saying the people are first. We are saying families are affected, and we need to start having these discussions, and the community is also affected, but there is hope. And these conversations will help us, and I'm glad to see the chair lead this team. I'm happy that professionals are speaking about addiction and lived experiences. You know, when you've won or walked that journey, it's different.
It's very different.
It's different.
Absolutely very different.
When she said the accidents, when she said work and performance, all those are things that I went through at one point in my life, and I thought it was my character or it was a moral issue, only to discover last year when I got into advocacy that addiction is a brain disease. It's
a really, really big disease, and it's high time that we start seeing it as that, as a disease, as a society. I think that will also help us to understand, so then how best do we seek help for this person. But there's also, we need to be very careful in terms of seeking help for this person, because someone was saying, until the person decides, you know what, I need help, even if you push them, chances are it might not really work. So wait until the person says, you know what, I need help, please help. But still, there's also a case of relapse. I mean, listen, we'll go through all this conversation throughout the show, but still on the front page of the Daily Nation, serialization. And this is a memoir by Senator Beth Mugo, where she says, cancer, shock, and the epic battle to save my life. And getting a second chance at anything is spirit lifting, but getting a second chance at life is mind-boggling. It happened to me after I was diagnosed with breast cancer, got treated, and declared free of the disease. And that story is on pages 2 and 3 of the Daily Nation. But very quickly, still on the front page, so state invites bids to operate port assets. President had earlier opposed to such plans. That story is on page 10. And as well as on education matters, varsities demanding fees, say first years. And, you know, some colleges are actually defying CS Machogu's directive. Again, that story is at the back of the Daily Nation. So get yourself the paper, go through it. There's so much that you can get, and this is as far as the stories are concerned. And of course, like we said again, you know, Senator Beth Mugo's memoir, and this is as far as her battle with cancer. And again, she said, cancer, shock, and the epic battle to save my life. There's so much that you can read through on the second page of the Daily Nation. But very quickly on her epiphany, she says, much as my diagnosis in 2010 with breast cancer was devastating, my successful treatment made me realize that this disease is not a death sentence, and especially if detected and treated early. I was lucky to get a second chance at life. And this is very beautiful to see, you know, her writing the memoir, because again, there's a lot of, you know, conversation and fears as far as cancer is concerned. Some people would call it the big C, but she says, listen, there is hope as long as it is detected and treated early. So read through her memoir and then to see what more she has to say on the same. But still on Daily Nation, there's a story that I actually want us to go through very quickly, and this is as far as malaria is concerned. Malaria is not new. We have heard, we have talked about it, we have had conversations, we have seen what is happening as far as vaccines and treatment of malaria is concerned, but still there is a survey that says preventable malaria is still killing Kenyans. It says this translates to about 13 million people in malaria endemic areas and a further 19 million in the highlands. So the big question is, what exactly should be done? Because the latest Kenya Malaria Indicator Survey shows that 7 in 10 Kenyans are still at risk of getting a malaria infection. So is it time that we change strategy when it comes to malaria response? Because in the 5-year Kenya malaria strategy, low transmission areas in the country were mapped out for elimination, and the country's low-risk malaria zones are mostly in central region, including Nairobi. One of the strategies includes having passive and active surveillance systems to detect malaria cases, notify and conduct investigations for the appropriate response, with a few months left. And this is as far as to review I know what exactly has been happening, and this is as far as investigations and response as well to malaria. So the big question is it time to change tactic as far as our fight against malaria? That story was done by Helen Shikanda on page 5 of the Daily Nation. All right. And then there is also, again, that story on drug abuse. Okay. It's on page 12 of the Daily Nation. So I'm just trying to find that. All right, this is it. So this is a report by NACADA, again, like we said, was released yesterday, and this is over the last 5 years, what has been happening in the country. And it says alcohol, cannabis use has spiked, and this is in the last 5 years. And of course, the question that we're saying this morning that is very, very concerning is the fact that the age of initiation has actually, is at 6 years. And the big question is why? What exactly are we doing? Are we failing our children? That is the question that we're asking this morning right here on AM Live, because it says more Kenyans are consuming alcohol, with 42% of the current users addicted to it. And again, the prevalence, and this is among the ages between 25 to around 35 years, says 1 in every 14 youth. And that translates to 596,336 were addicted to alcohol, right? And then continues to say 1 in every 33 youth, that is again translating to 247,139 were addicted to tobacco. 1 in every 71 youth, that is 112,724 were addicted to cut. 1 in every 83 youth, that is 100,468 again were addicted to cannabis, and especially for the use of cannabis, right? We'll delve deeper into the same just to understand what exactly is the biggest issue. Is it, the myths and misconceptions surrounding cannabis, and how some people say, but this one is better than tobacco, it does not have long-lasting effects or impacts of the same. But again, Chair, very quickly, do you want to just take us through what exactly the numbers saying as far as cannabis is concerned? 90% increase? There was
90%, and that's very worrying, by the way.
That is very worrying.
Very worrying.
Yeah.
Because if you see the graph, actually, it's a steep spike.
Yeah.
And so we were wondering what has happened. But I think it's more casual talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
If you remember, I think even during the political time, the election time, there was a lot of talk about cannabis and, that it could be something good. And I think that talk has been going on among the young people to say, well, there's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
You can just take and it will make you feel good. And it has no effects.
Yeah.
Look at so-and-so, they are okay.
Yeah.
And so I think that type of misconception. And then one of the biggest contributors, I think, as far as is the international talk about it. There has been talk about the medicinal use.
Yes.
And so because of that, some nations have been pushing to say, well, let's legalize this. There's no problem with it. And I think that must have crept into our young people. They must have thought this is not a very serious thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And again, and that begs the question, is it then more of our laws? Because it is illegal in the country, right? Use of cannabis.
It is
but
illegal.
Again, at the same time, people will tell you, you will see what exactly is happening. So is it a question of policies? Is it the laws that are not strong enough to deal with such cases?
I think, let's just face it, it's enforcement.
It is enforcement.
Yeah, it's enforcement.
Okay, we'll delve deeper into what exactly that says, right, as far as enforcement is concerned, what are the areas that we need to tighten?
Yes.
What are some of these gaps that we need to fill?
Yes.
But I want to hear very quickly from Nkatha, because I'm pretty sure you interact and engage with so many young people. What exactly are they saying? And especially when we talk about cannabis, very quickly, because we need to go on a break.
Number one, cannabis is socially accepted. Socially accepted. I like the way you asked that question, because I couldn't wait to add on to what Reverend Marori said. Is recently a popular celebrity posted on his social media taking a puff of this illegal product, and I didn't hear anyone speak about nothing. No police. And so when we talk about enforcement, the law is there, but people are not acting upon it. So when you see the glamorization of these drugs, and you see celebrities or known influencers doing it, or in your circles people using it casually, then people are drawn to it. They don't see the harm, again, because of the medicinal properties that the discussions that have been going on. But it starts innocently. Many people go in blindly, only to be caught up later on when they cannot stop. So the youth find it attractive because it is cheaper, it is accessible, it is something that even some politicians openly have used it. So we need, as a country, to be serious and start enforcing enforcement, so that if it is an illegal drug, then let's see people get into court and get arrested. And it doesn't matter who you are in society, because that normalization of these drugs, that normalization has made it normal, and that's why people don't see any harm.
Anything wrong with it. And we see this in music videos, you know, played on TV in the morning. It's like it's no big deal. If anything, it's the coolest thing. And I wonder what you have to say, Catherine. Is it more peer pressure to look cool, to what exactly is happening?
I think when we're looking at a young person, it's a combination of many factors. They would want to identify with celebrities. They would want to identify with role models. And this could be, you know, media personalities, musicians, politicians, and everything. And when you look at some of the music, as you have said, there's a lot of marijuana that goes with it. So one of the things is that what is the perception that we have about marijuana? And then, like Reverend has mentioned, during the last campaign, when there was marijuana. But then the thing that most people don't know, what is being talked about here, because there is the medicinal marijuana and there is what people are actually taking. When a young person is coming and telling you that it's medicinal, it's a holy herb, what are you treating? What are you suffering from? So one of the things, in addition to lack of enforcement that is there, I think we don't have the correct information about these drugs. We don't have a good understanding, or when we are talking about the medicinal marijuana and what is available in the market, and what are the short-term and the long-term impacts that are actually there. So what is the solution? We need to have sensitization. There need to be a lot of prevention campaigns at families, at schools, in the communities, to have our young people have the correct information about what is it that we are talking about weed, what is it that we are talking about the marijuana, to separate from the addictive one to the medicinal one, because the chemical composition is different. It's different.
Okay, and I like the fact that you're saying, first of all, what are you suffering from and what are you treating? You need to be very keen on the same. All right, so let's take a break. When we come back, we'll still continue, you know, with the newspaper review, just to see what exactly is on our dailies. But again, you know, still that report on Nakada dominates the headline this morning on Taifa Leo, where it says, Nchi ya mchele na vileo. Okay, so what exactly is that about? We'll be looking at that after the short break. Stay with us. This is AM Live. If you want to be part of the conversation as far as drug and substance abuse right here in the country, please feel free by all means to send us your comment and feedback at NTV Kenya, both on Facebook and on Twitter. We'll be going through them as we continue with the conversation. But for now, let's take that short break. See you on the other side.
Yo, but true say the sharp got up in the mix, know what I'm saying? Anything, shout out to you, bro. Keep it locked. Hey.
Sauti yako ina sound vizuri kwenye masikio.
I like it. Come to the dance floor, babe.
Angie.
Leo tuna festa pe banda.
Another banger. And it's just like an amazing mix.
I am happy today.
Sing kama vitu unanilea. Inaweka shida chini na tupande kona juu. Banjuka tu.
No compromise, this the hottest combo.
Unistima, uninare. On MTV, don't touch that dial. Not yet. No, I want it.
Who would have thought that Miss Irene is actually worse than I thought she was? She didn't even tell her father about her wedding.
What's the matter? Don't you like it?
It's very cute. Thank you very much.
Will you look at this? What a nice blender. Every time we use this blender to make juices, we'll be reminded of you.
What was that?
It's Tiburcio. He's back here from the hospital.
He's out of the hospital? Can he talk properly now, Lala?
He can't, ma'am.
It's impossible for Tiburcio to speak in his current state. And so the only thing I need to make sure of is that Irene never discovers that Natalia Garcia is her daughter.
Head over heels.
Playing video games at a professional level takes a lot of skill, a lot of practice, a lot of discipline, just like any other sport. It's not an easy journey, especially when you have a lot of eyes on you and you're coming in as a minority in the space. Here in Kenya, I'd like to think I'm well loved, but feeling all that love in South Africa, it feels like, yo.
The crowd is into it. I think we're over. It's over. The crowd is into it. Great block. Oh, this one is over. Yeah.
Reach your audience instantly and make a lasting impression with Nation Sema. Affordable SMS at 0.3 Kenya shillings. Own sender ID for 10,000 Kenya shillings plus 10,000 free SMS. To sign up, please call 0790 111 111 or email us on nationsema@ke.nationmedia.com.
All right, welcome back. The show is AM Live, 49 minutes past the hour this morning, and we are interrogating a report that was released by NACADA, and this is on the status of drugs and substance use in Kenya, and this is 2022, and this is what has been happening over the last 5 years, where it says alcohol is the most widely used substance of abuse, not of use, abuse, okay? In Kenya, with 1 in every 8 Kenyans aged between 16 to 65, and that translates to 3 million people, all right? So 3,199,119 people are currently consuming alcohol, okay? And of course, also, like we said, the numbers, and this is as far as an alarming revelation, that the number of cannabis users has skyrocketed by an astounding 90 million, no, 90%. 90%, we're not 90 million, we're only 55 million people in the country, 90%, and this is in just the last 5 years. So the big question is, what exactly is happening? What is not being done? What is the gaps? And this is as far as our policies, our laws. I know NACADA board chair says this morning, enforcement is the very, very big issue in one of those things. So the big question is then, so what needs to be done now that we understand where, you know, the problem is? What is it that we need to do more? All right, but very quickly, just to brush through on what exactly is happening on our dailies. So Taifa Leo says, nchi ya mchele na vileo. And of course, you know, it lists some of the areas that have been heavily affected, and this is as far as use and abuse on drugs, and says matokeo ya uchunguzi pia yaonyesha ongezeko la uraibu wa matumizi ya dawa za kulevya pamoja na zinazohitaji ushauri wa daktari. And on the front page again has listed some of the regions. For example, Magharibi inaongoza kwa unywaji wa pombe kwa asilimia 23.8, Nyanza uvutaji wa bangi asilimia 2.4, eneo la kati uvutaji wa tumbako kwa asilimia 11.9, unywaji wa pombe asilimia 12.8, and again continues to list all these other regions, and you know, according to what the numbers say. But again, like we said, to get more in depth on the same, get yourself a copy of Taifa Leo. Or again, you can easily log into epaper.nation.africa and read through what these numbers say, amongst so many other stories as well. What exactly is dominating the Business Daily this morning? So it says 60 billion shillings loan deposit gap piles pressure on SACCOs, and says distressed members continue to dip into their savings, while a number of dormant members rose to 1.22 million in 2022. So that story was done by Charles Moniki. Get yourself a copy of the Business Daily and read through more on the same. But still on the front page of the Business Daily, Ruto pushes for hustler-friendly treasury bills, bonds trading as well, and where it says President Ruto, that is William Ruto, has directed the Central Bank of Kenya, CBK, this is to make sure, just very quickly, let me just use the hard copy so that I read what exactly is written. So it says to lower the entry level in treasury bills and bonds trading to accommodate a wider pool of retail investors. And the president said yesterday there was need to democratize investments in government securities, citing similar efforts made in the past with a mobile-based Akiba bond. Again, so many of the stories on the Business Daily. So it's very easy, epaper.nation.africa, or get yourself a hard copy as well. Very quickly on the East African, what exactly is on the front page? It says, so who exactly will fund EA resilience agenda? And this is according, as far as the Africa Climate Summit is concerned. So says the challenge remains how and where to raise additional resources to implement the nationally determined contribution. This is NDCs, which are at the heart of the climate mitigation and building sustainability. That story is on page 4, still on the front page of the East African. So Bahrain in renewed shuttle diplomacy for world support, and says on his third trip in a week, the Sudan military leader was in Doha pledging peace as he seeks to isolate rivals. Page 9 is what or where you can get that story, and still on the front page, regional forces stay extended amid protests in Congo, and where the EACRF will be staying longer even as the UN peacekeeping mission prepares to start leaving from December. That story is on page 10 of the East African, again amongst so many other stories that you can get as far as the region is concerned and what exactly is happening in different places in different countries as well. And last but not least, very quickly on what the Standard is saying this morning, as far as the headline reads, and says Sakaja unleashes tax wrath on city hustlers, and says if you live or do business in Nairobi, prepare for more pain as the county government has published its tax policies, and continues to say, and they do not spare bodabodas, mama mboga, motorists, and traders as well. But actually that is what was on yesterday's front page. Today on the Standard, it says jitters over pace of Ruto-Raila talks, and with tight deadlines to come up with a report that will inform changes in the country's laws. Speed of talks has leaders raising eyebrows on whether the agenda will be fully discussed and on time. This is to affect the changes. So again, so much happening on our dailies, but very quickly, like we said, today on the show we'll be focusing on what exactly is happening, and this is as far as a report that was released by NACADA, and this is on the substance use and abuse right here in the country, and we're looking at alcohol, narcotics, prescription medications as well. Is this a headache for the country? So to help us with that conversation, we have Reverend Dr. Stephen Mayorori, who is the NACADA board chair, with us this morning. We have Catherine Muthiani, who's a counseling psychologist, and Nkatha Mwenda, who is the founder Sober Living Youth Summit. And there's so much that is on this report. And one of the things that I also saw from the report is the different regions. And was it in the last report where it is Western that was leading? Was it on alcohol or just in general?
Yeah, actually, this report.
Yeah.
Western is leading.
Western is leading in this
alcohol.
report as well in,
Yes,
alcohol.
in alcohol.
All right. Okay.
And it's interesting. The effects are not as dire. You know, people take alcohol in Western, but the effects is not as in Central. So Central is about number, is it 4 in alcohol, and yet the effects are bad. Yeah. So there's a big difference. I think in Central Kenya, you have the potable spirits, the third generation alcohol, that people have referred to, and the alcohol content is very, very, very high. I think what I would just say is people in Central are taking poison. While in Western, you know, if you think about Busa, the effects will be there, but it's not as bad as what Central was consuming.
Okay.
So that's why people are asking me, if Western is leading, why are we not seeing death?
Exactly.
And why is it that we are seeing deaths in Central? I think what they are consuming is what is different.
All right.
But the truth is, over time, Western will still have, you know, serious effects. But for Central, it was more, it's just you take this potable spirits and the person is down because of the alcohol content.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm sure someone is watching us this morning trying to figure out what exactly do you mean by potable spirits. Okay. Someone who's never heard that term before, thinking, oh, okay, because there are also cases of illicit brewing in different parts of the country, including Western as well. But it's very interesting, you know, what you're saying, that we're seeing the impact and the effects more in Central as compared to Western.
You're right. Now, again, there's been you know, ethanol, I think for some reason, I don't know how that, again, the issue of enforcement. We've had illegal ethanol being imported into the country. And so there are people actually in many homes had these small, what I would say, manufacturing plants where they mixed some ethanol with a few other things. Actually, the end product, in some places when it's been tested, is very lethal. And so, and they would package them. Sometimes they would package them in small packets, sometimes in bottles, and so that's what they sold. And some of them are very cheap. Actually, those ones in small packets are very cheap, so people would just get that and they would take
and consume that. But because it is, where do they get them from?
I think we'll discuss that more because that's an issue we are now addressing.
Exactly.
We are really addressing that because that was the main issue in Central, or that has been the main issue. Yes.
Where that comes from, because again, it has to come from somewhere, right? Okay, all right. And even still on the same, like you said, cannabis, big increase, 90%. So that's very, very huge. We also spoke about very young, I mean, the age of initiation now at 9 years old, at 6 years old. I mean, initially it used to be like 9, 10, but we're seeing that you know, the age of initiation actually going lower and lower as we move forward. You said it is more of a parenting issue. I wonder, Catherine, what do you make of the same? You also said parenting has much to do with the same.
Yes, thank you. And we cannot just squarely blame it on the parenting, because we are all more or less living in a global village where kids are also exposed to many things. But just to digress a bit and look at, I remember, I don't know whether it was a magistrate who was sharing an experience on a 4-month-old being addicted, to tie on to the point of parenting being one of the primary concerns. Because if a mother has a business that she has to do at night, and the child will be awake at night. So in this case, we had a 4-month-old being given alcohol so that the child can sleep through the night. By the virtue of what alcohol does. So what do we see here? A parenting concern. When you look at families, do we have rules? Do we have regulations? Do we have families that have bars? children, monkey see, monkey do. So if a child is seeing their parents using, a child is seeing in the media people using, and everybody seems to be having fun, then they are likely definitely to start testing. It's even more sad when we see clips on social media going round of a child in a club having their own parent giving them a drink. I remember there's a time I saw a clip of around 3 or 4 year old, a father giving this child a bottle of Tusker. So who do we blame here? The child can't make a decision. So there's the parent that is there. There's also the other issue of lack of enforcement. We have the famously known as the Mutudo laws. You know, when we are looking at where do we find some of these facilities, you walk in the estate, you can even stretch your hand and you are able to access alcohol. When we have youth who the parents have gone to work, there is no supervision. They are able to access. Nowadays we have dollar delivery. So people can actually access alcohol left, right and center. So we have a lot of access that is there that we can look into. But also we cannot forget about some other situations where young people, not now talking about the 6-year-old, but young people, teenagers, people in universities that are using alcohol as a coping mechanism because of some of the things that are happening at home, because of some of the challenges that they are dealing with, and they have no one to talk to.
I see that. And unemployment as well has also been tabbed as one of the driving factors, you know, for quote-unquote consolation, you know, and all those things. So again, we'll again be interrogating that as we continue with the conversation. But Nkatha, very quickly, like you said, this used to be personal, but then you, after recovery, you came out with your story, inspiring so many people. But let's just go back 6 years ago, 6 years, 8 months to be exact, right? Let's go back to how and who was Nkatha then.
I say 2016 December, it was a New Year's, Christmas Eve was when my life turned around. Prior to that date, I had used alcohol and cigarettes for 10+ years. Let me use it over 10 years, you know, you don't calculate my age, huh? But 2016, in January, I just started reflecting into my life. Like I've said, I used alcohol for so long. I started innocently using when I was in flying school. When I cleared my high school, I went to flying school, and I was brought up in a pretty sheltered home, stable, you know, amazing parents, supportive. And there was a lot of don'ts. Don't do this, don't do that. And so
with
when
no
I
explanation of what
and maybe it was curiosity.
Yeah.
So I went to this flying school, and there were more men than women. It was an environment of freedom. The age bracket was wide because there are these people who are student pilots like myself who was about 18, and there are those who are in their late 20s or in their 30s who are coming to convert. And it was in that environment, just casually mingling with peers, that one time someone offered me some cigarette and asked, do you use? And I said, never, how can I? But I was curious, maybe I just wanted to fit in, and I picked them up and I went home, obviously in hiding, to try out. I took 2 of them. There was a cigarette and the marijuana. The cigarette I coughed, I said I would never use it. The weed, they called it a different name. If my father is watching this, oh my goodness. In his compound, I tried the weed, and I saw the family house lifting up. And I knew since then, you know, I knew then I would never use that particular substance. And when I went back to flying school, I returned the drugs to this friend of mine, but it's like I had already been initiated. So I would hang out with them after school. We would go into the bar and start drinking. I didn't use so much in flying school. It was when I joined campus. And I just want to show where it started really hitting the problem hard. When I cleared the first license, I got a PPL. I was ready to pursue my commercial license. I knew I would fly the national airliner.
Yeah.
But the sad reality was I didn't transition into that career. In fact, my parents just asked that I consider going to campus as they sorted themselves out. I didn't know it would be sorting themselves out till today. But so I went to look for a course to do, only to find out that I had qualified by merit to pursue a degree in nutrition.
Okay.
And that was celebration in my home, but that was the beginning of depression for me, because I saw my aviation career go down the drain. And like I said, last year I was able to reflect what happened. So when I joined campus, I joined campus unhappy, upset. I didn't tell my parents that, but I was annoyed at them because they didn't allow me to pursue. So I want us to understand that transitions, major transitions or change in life, even lifestyles, can cause harm. It can be traumatic. And some people may say, oh, you're spoiled, etc., etc. But if you are socialized in a certain way, and maybe you're not guided into the transition to another kind of lifestyle, it can affect you. You may not notice then. Like I said, for me, I drank for so many years. It's just last year I realized, wow, you mean I've been drinking because I didn't pursue aviation? You mean I sank into dependence and into an addiction because, so the underlying issues really matter. I went to campus. When I was in class, I would perform. When I had free time, I would hang out at the student center. I would get drunk, and there were blackouts. Those are signs of a problem. I got into compromising situations. There was attempted rape. You know, I'm talking about things that people are experiencing every other day. They happened to me, and I graduated with a degree in addiction. I say that. And when I left campus, I got my first job, an international job, covered quite a number of countries. And guess who was the first officers in those aircrafts when I was going to Tanzania and Uganda and all these countries? My former classmates. So I got upset the more, not appreciating that I had this great opportunity. I was working for this company. I was educating on nutrition. It was an envy of most. But remember, I was stuck somewhere. I was stuck at the 19-year-old who was disappointed.
Who wanted to
so
pursue
if you don't address some issues, then you can get stuck at one point in your life, and you will live life numb. So anytime I did my meetings and we would engage many people, my favorite spot was the Sinatabu at a bar in Kampala, in Johannesburg, in all those places. And so that continued for many years. And like I keep saying, alcohol is a psychoactive substance with dependence-producing substances. So you don't get addicted overnight. It is the continuous exposure and use. And I want to highlight this thing they call tolerance. We'd hang out with people and someone will brag, oh, I used to drink this brand before I'd get high on half a bottle. Now I'm getting high on one bottle. And they brag on how strong they are. Those are signs of a problem. So those are indicators that you have a drinking problem. So that was my life for quite a while. And as I continued using, as Catherine described addiction, it is a compulsive disease. And despite the detriment, despite the harm, you still keep using it. It is a disease.
It's a disease.
So I did get accidents on the road. I drove under the influence. You know, I got accidents. And you'd imagine that would be the last time you would use the substance. But 2-3 days, I have no scratch, I find myself back there. And I like what you said earlier, that many people will look at you and ask you, why can't you just stop? It is a disease.
Why can't you do it?
You can't explain why you need it. And it is a brain that has deteriorated. It's a brain disease. So your reward system changes. I was yearning for that quick fix.
I see
so
that.
Fast forward, I can talk and talk, but fast forward in 2016, I just acknowledged I have a problem.
You have a problem. Put a pause to that. We'll come back to that. But very quickly, I also want to hear, Catherine, in terms of like the steps that we talked about, because you don't just start drinking today and then immediately become an addict. There's sort of like a process, you know, to it. And like you said, Katha, very well, is compulsive, right? So when you were not high, what were you like? Were you angry? Were you, right? And when you got high, how did it feel? So that we just see this too. Sorry if I'm prying too much, but we just want to know. And here's the thing, I have seen a lot of people who would tell you, if I don't drink, I'm not able to perform in any given way. I am not me sober. But then when I drink, or when I smoke, or when I, you know, use weed, cannabis, I become me. And I'm pretty sure you've also had a lot of people, you know, say that, and especially, you know, when you're dealing with like, you know, addiction and all those things. So who are these two people, sober Nkatha and high Nkatha?
I was a professional employed, and there's this terminology they call functional alcoholic. So obviously, I had some sense of responsibility.
All right.
So even when I drank, I was always reminded I have responsibility. So towards the later stages of the addiction is when I didn't care. I didn't care. And so just to describe a high is just a feeling of peace. You don't mind the hangover the day after, or sleeping in for 3 days if you went overboard, but there's just this peace and you just feel good. I don't want to express it more than that. And when I would be high, I would be bolder. I would face things head on. I would express myself vis-a-vis when I was sober, and I would be almost timid and reserved and wouldn't express myself. I would stand so many things, especially even with relationships. I would stand so much, but when I would get a bit tipsy and high, I would tell someone off and say crazy things, and everyone would like, is that Nkatha?
Who is that?
Yes. So it was two totally different personalities, two different personalities, and somewhat wild and free.
You know, I've had a story of a guy who's, again, very vocal as far as addiction and his journey towards recovery and what he's doing right now. His name is Mr. Ogot. I'm pretty sure we all know him. He said, in high school, I was very shy. You know, I would not talk to girls. I would not talk to people. And then I was, you know, introduced into alcohol, and I became confident, and I got all the girls that I wanted. So he used that, you know, to get the courage and the confidence and all those things. And before he knew it, he went to addiction and tried other things that it was just too difficult for him. So Catherine, very quickly, listening to what Nkatha has said, very important points that I'm pretty sure we have seen it, especially among family members, among friends, among, you know, the people around us, our co-workers as well. That stages. Can we just talk about those different stages so that we also demystify this myth of, you know, I'm just a social drinker, you know, I perform very well under the influence and all those things. Take us through all those steps very quickly. Then we'll try to get the numbers.
Allow me, may I just pick some pointers that Nkatha has talked about that are also critical in looking at addiction. She's mentioned one of the reasons as to why she started to drink is when she saw her aviation dream go to waste. She was a young person. When somebody starts to use alcohol or drugs quite early, the brain is not yet developed in thinking about rational decision making, problem solving, and all. Young people think emotionally, so for her it was just emotions, and you know, why are my parents killing my dreams? So because of that emotionality, you'll get to have young persons making the wrong decisions, and when the brain gets exposed early to drug use, there's usually the increased possibility of developing addiction. Why is it so? Because the brain of a young person hasn't yet developed, and there are critical areas that are useful in decision making that are not yet there. You've heard her talk about the issue of reward. We repeat behaviors because they are rewarding, and drugs, they hijack that part in our brain that is responsible in enabling us to see rewards. Our decision making areas, our emotional areas, and memory areas. So if this person, like the example of Ogot that you've given, he knows he's shy. That is what his thinking brain tells him. But now here he comes in and drinks, and he gets all the confidence, he gets all the girls. So what is that recorded in his brain? Oh, this thing gives you confidence. So whenever you're feeling low, do it again. So that cycle of seeking the reward of whatever is registered for the person is what the individual will keep on seeking. Sadly so, because that area is getting hijacked. You find progressively this person is not able, if it's peer pressure, they are in. If it's just let's get damaged, people are in, because they can't think clearly. And it's very critical in looking at managing addiction. We talked about the loss of control and compulsivity. So when you don't have that, pretty much the drug is the one that is controlling you. So very key in just getting to look at the age of onset and the development and the motives behind it. Yes. Now on how does addiction develop? Because it's not everyone drinks that has an addiction problem. So people start out as experimentation. You know, like you told you, try this. She was given a cigarette and a weed. You know, like it. You feel nice. So that is what somebody is likely to go for. So at the experimentation stage, there's curiosity that is driving people. There is also what is the worst that can happen. So in the experimentation is what may determine whether somebody is going to progress to the next stage or not. Because if, like the example she gave, she smoked weed, but she was like, this is not mine. There was no activation of something that was positive. There was no reward in it. So because there was no reward, she stopped that. But now if the other one is giving reward, I will try another time. So from experimentation, where most youths are, is people now progress to social use, and this term gets loosely
we need to be very careful of the same.
Drinker. You know, I only drink on social occasions. But what if you have social occasions Monday to Sunday? Are you a social drinker? Maybe not. But in social use, because somebody already knows how the drug or how the alcohol made them feel at the initial stages, they will go there, not because they want to experiment, but they have that feeling to connect, to get together under some certain circumstances. Here, problems will be minimized. People will say, no, but I only drink on Fridays, on Mondays I'm at work. So the warning signs will go unattended to, or people will just dismiss them. Then from there, the person progresses to what we call an instrumental use. So here somebody is using to manipulate circumstances.
That is where they say, this is the me now.
Yes, like, I want to get some confidence. So that's why I'm gonna drink. Oh, there's something I wanted to tell you, but I don't think I have the courage enough to come and do it. So I'm gonna have a part. Somebody has lost a loved one. They're not able to cope. They use that to numb their feelings. So in the instrumental use, it can be for two things. One wants to compensate, that they are using as a coping mechanism, dealing with life issues, soothing emotions, pain. And there is also the just to be happy, to enjoy. It's life, YOLO. You know, we live just once. So there is a motive behind it. So the more the reasons somebody has to use, the higher the likelihood of it now becoming a problem. At the instrumental stage, this is now where we get to see the red flags. It's already a concern here because somebody is going overboard. If it's stress, there are healthier ways of dealing with stress without having to use. If somebody has lost a loved one, there are ways in which somebody can go for therapy and process through that without going to use. So if someone doesn't have healthy coping skills, they're likely now to progress. It becomes a habit. Yes, they have the stressors at the background, but this is now something that they have already formed. They need to drink. And when they need to drink, the issue of the brain now becoming dependent on it sets in. They will not be able to sleep when they have not had a drink. They will also probably start having difficulty difficulties in functioning when they don't have a drink. So that's the habitual stage.
Right.
Very thin line between the habitual stage and now the addictive stage.
Yeah.
Because now in the addictive stage, we are not only looking at you missing work, we're not only looking at you relegating your family, we are also looking at you drinking more than you have been drinking before. We are looking at you engaging in risky behaviors, but we are also seeing you not able to stop when you want.
Okay.
And this is why people will ask, you stopped drinking yourself, why can't you just stop
it?
And you've heard me mention about the brain. There's a lot of brain mechanism and changing in terms of how the brain works, that this person cannot just wake up and stop.
And decide to stop.
Because the brain has already become dependent, and the brain is the center of everything that we do. So the brain has become used to having this. So when the person doesn't have, they get to have what we call the withdrawal symptoms. So people will really fear, if I quit, I will not be sober, you know, when their hands are trembling, when they are having nightmares. So it's a quick fix. So it becomes now a cycle that the person really wants to stop, but they are just unable to stop. And it's a sad story that at times we will condemn people thinking they want to lie on the street. Who drinks as a father to sleep on the ditches, pee on themselves? Not.
That is
that's not anybody's
nobody wants
wish.
that. Nobody wants that.
Nobody really wants
I hear that. I hear that. And it's important that you have taken us through that. We need to take a very short break. But you want to say something? Okay,
I just said something.
You do that in like a
I'll
minute?
talk when we come, but the idea is just transitioning, Winnie, is you can see the challenge that we have as a nation.
100%, yes.
Because this report says 1 in every 20 Kenyan aged between 15 to 65, that is 1.3. Were addicted to alcohol. And then you have 887,000 were addicted to tobacco. And then you have 227 to to cannabis, about 294. That's a very huge number. And if we have those number of people who are, we would say they are sick, we don't have the rehab centers that can accommodate. We don't have.
There's only one that is NACADA funded.
But even with the private ones, it can't take this number. You talk about the psychologists that we have in the country, you know, the people who can understand about the brain change that has caused. The psychiatrists, there are very few. So this is something that we very much would need to address yesterday.
All right.
Because it is critical.
And it's true. And now that we understand, so then what exactly do we need to do? And again, like I said, we'll come back then to just hear from NACADA. So then what, I mean, there's only too far that NACADA can go, all right? We talked about the fact that you stretch a hand, there's a bar here. You stretch a hand, there's another one there. You stretch a hand, there's another liquor store. There's so many liquor stores in a neighborhood than a chemist, right? So then what do we do? Does NACADA has the mandate to close that, all those things? Can we discuss that after the, because I do not want to rush you. I did not want to rush you because we need solutions. There is a problem. We understand where the problem is, and we need solutions as soon as now, so that again, 5 years later, we want to see these numbers reduced, if not completely dealt away with. So we'll come back from the break with more on the conversation. But again, like I said, you want to contribute at NTV Kenya, both on Facebook and on Twitter is how you can reach us. Or better yet, our lines are officially open, so give us a call. The numbers are down on your screen. But all that is coming up after the break right here on AM Live. See you shortly.
you're finally released from pain. That moment when you start to get back to ordinary, and ordinary feels amazing. Whatever pain you're going through, release starts here.
With Glovo, you've got the city at your fingertips. Hanging out na mnataka kuku fry ama nyama choma customized na ugali sosa? Order Glovo. Now enjoy. Time to shower and running out of soap? Order Glovo. Now uanze siku fresh. Ama simply treat family nzima with a sweet surprise. Delicious. With Glovo, unaweza track order yako minute by minute. Download Glovo, order anything you want and receive it in minutes.
Daring Abroad makes me dare.
It's the only show of its kind in the world. And now, it's bigger.
And even more entertaining and informative than before.
Hapa kunaitwa Kakoe na inatubaba sana.
From London to Jersey Island.
Goma in the Democratic Republic of Congo to the scenic features of Uganda, the Pearl of Africa.
And many more places abroad and at home.
I watch Daring Abroad. I like the stories which people bring.
Daring Abroad every Saturday at 7:30 p.m. with repeats every Sunday at 1:30 p.m. on NTV.
El Shaddai, uko na kile minadai, ulinipenda hata kama misifai. El Shaddai, El Shaddai, El Shaddai, uko na kile minadai, ulinipenda hata.
To get El Shaddai by Heart the Band, dial *811 *927#.
Skiza, Nan Nation.
All right, welcome back. Of course, the conversation continues. Even during the break, my guests are still discussing the same. And this is as far as the topic of conversation today. And this is as far as the status of drugs and substance use that was released by NACADA. We're interrogating the numbers, understanding where the problem is exactly, and what solutions need to happen as soon as now. Because this is not the first time that NACADA has released a report. You have released this, a report, right? Yes. Every single 5 years. Yes. The problem, I mean, we are aware of what exactly is happening on the trends. The younger people and even the older people. Someone was saying, when you think about drug use, like for example, we're talking about alcohol and cannabis, you would think is the population between like 30, 40, 50 years thereabouts that will be using a lot because they have the money. They have, it's like they have quote unquote their life in order. But again, 15 years, 6 years, the age of initiation, that is very, very worrying a little bit. And we're not just focusing on alcohol, cannabis, tobacco and whatnot. There's also prescription drugs, which we talked about. And there's also the poly drugs where people are using multiple drugs as well. And from the report, it says 1 in every 500 Kenyans aged between 15 and 65 years. And that translates to 60,407 people were currently using prescription drugs. 1 in every 500 males aged 15 to 65 years, translating to over 18,000 people. And 1 in every 333 females, translating to more than 41,000, were currently using prescription drugs. Now, also, the whole question about poly drugs, where 1 in every 15 Kenyans aged between 15 to 65 years, and we're talking about over 1 million people were currently using multiple drugs. And 1 in every 8 males aged between 15 and 65 years, again translating to 1.5 million, and 1 in every 77 females, translating to 188,177, were currently using multiple drugs, and the coast region has the highest prevalence of multiple drug use at 10.5%, followed by Nairobi at 8.4% and Central at 7.8%. My biggest concern is access. Where are people getting this? What are some of the most common, drugs, that is multiple drugs, that people are, using? Earlier on I had asked that question as far as access is concerned. Do you want to respond to that? But again, we'll come back to you, Catherine.
Yes, yes. She will probably talk about the drugs, but let me talk about access.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that I would love the Kenyan people to know is that, we've seen this. And as a board, we realized there is a big problem.
Yeah.
And so, as I said before we went for break, when you have about 2.5 people who are sick, who need help, that is a very huge number. And we have mainly, if I would say, we approach this war in 2 ways, the fight in 2 ways. One is the supply suppression, and the other one is demand reduction.
All right.
And so I think where things fell was on the area of supply suppression.
Okay.
Yeah, we focus so much on demand reduction, which is very key, and again we'll be talking more about it. But I think there were major loopholes in the supply suppression, because if you remove these things out of the market, then people cannot access. But if they are on the shelf, when somebody goes there, they will look at it and they'll say, can I try this? And so I think part of our policy, going forward, is as a board, we're going to focus very highly on supply suppression.
Yeah.
And we do have institutions in place that the taxpayer actually pays these agencies to do their work.
Yeah.
And
would you say they're doing their job?
They should be doing their job. And it's very clear. The message is out there now.
Yeah.
The president himself is leading at the top. The deputy president, if you've seen, has gone with us around. We have now been in we began in Central, went to Rift Valley. We went to Meru. We are going to Mombasa very soon with him. The message is clear.
Yeah.
Those institutions that are charged with making sure that the supply of these drugs don't come into the country should do their work.
Yeah.
They
and I wonder what that war looks like, because again, granted, our borders, very porous.
Yes.
Anything can come in into the country.
Yes.
It's very difficult to regulate that once it gets into the market. But so then where are the starting points?
Yes, but we Kenyans, there's nothing that comes into this country that any Kenyan cannot see.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's why as an agency, as a board, we are calling on Kenyans to join us in this war.
All right.
We can win it if all Kenyans join hands. Because if you see that Pro Box, and it's carrying something that is not good, that is going to make my child sick to be among this number of people, then we should be able to report.
Yeah.
The big task then therefore comes to the enforcement. Those agencies starts with enforcement, and I can assure you the government is working very hard. It's a major change. I know Kenyans would say this has been talked about over the years, but there is a big shift. We now working with with Achieve, even your area really, as the deputy president said, if you have alcohol there, you have bang being sold, what are you doing there? One of you should leave. Either the alcohol or yourself.
Okay.
The OCS, everybody, because these are agencies that Kenyan people pay taxes to keep them on their jobs. They should be able to do their work.
Okay.
And so as NACADA, we are monitoring that very closely, and I think we'll work hard. The other part is just these people like in Central who are producing the third generation, the portable spirits. We all know there's these big houses, they have behind them, they are manufacturing something. And we are saying we have intelligence in this nation, we have the people know. And so we're zeroing in on those ones so that we cut the supply. And we are telling people that you can do other businesses that can
Find
bring you money,
alternatives.
not these ones that are destroying the lives
The
of
lives of
fellow
so many
Kenyans.
people. Okay.
And so cutting supply is very key in the war.
Yeah. Is it time that maybe we change strategy? Because again, like you said, there's this other aspect of enforcement, which we'll talk about in just a second.
Yes.
But there's also this part where we have sung this song. If you see this thing happening in your neighborhood that is wrong, please report.
Yes.
But the same people who will tell you, but this one helps us, the high, you know, to say dear to function, you know, because someone was saying that there's no united, I don't want to say community, but let's just use it in this context.
Yeah, right.
Than people either in bars, you know, drunk, high, they will support you in any given way. You understand? Right? So when you say people should be able to report, that has worked in instances, that has not worked in so many other instances. Right. So is it time that maybe then we introduce incentives and say, if you report, we give you something. Yeah. We give you this. Just again, in the war against the same.
I hope and pray, you know, like if you actually looked in talking to people, there's no home, there's no person who haven't seen somebody or haven't had a person affected.
Yeah.
Nearly every family has had this problem.
Yeah.
You know, for me, it's that is pain enough to say, for Kenyans to say it's enough. But I agree with you. Kenyans probably would you know, if there's an incentive, they would want to do that. But I want to challenge that and say, while that may be helpful, I think we have a duty as good citizens of the country.
Because then people will just report just for the sake
for the sake of things. We have a duty to save our country, to save our children, to save our future. And so we're actually working now, we're going to work with you know, religious leaders, because in every community there is either a church, a mosque, or that. We'll also work with teachers in our board, you know, the Ministry of Education is there. We'll work with them so that probably somebody doesn't know where to report. You can tell a religious leader in that community and they will follow up. You can tell a head teacher, you can tell a chief. There would be many ways of reporting. If for a common person they find it hard to reach to the police or somebody like that. So, and we are working with those groups so that they become, you know, the eyes for their community and a voice for their community.
Because we've also seen some of these law enforcers colluding, right?
That is true.
With these people as well. Okay, so Catherine, very quickly before you talk about the drugs, and especially which, you know, the ones that are mostly used in Qatar, very quickly, having gone through this, I'm just curious because, like I said, in 2016 December, New Year's Eve is when you had a moment to Christmas, to just reflect and just look at your life and all those things. But before that, we have seen this, right? Where at that point of addiction, and like we said, this is a disease. Let's just approach it from that angle first, because that will also help us to find the correct treatment and help for our loved one. We've seen most of the people who are at the addiction stage, they would do anything, right? There's the manipulative behavior. They will sell anything and everything, including their own clothes, you know, just to satisfy that need. I wonder whether this was a case for you and what informed that moment of just reflection. What exactly was the turning point? And then we'll talk about some of the challenges. We talked about not enough rehab center, like the board chair just said, not enough rehab centers, and even people not knowing the right approach to seek help for their people.
Yeah, there were extremes. I'll mention, there's once I sold a vehicle. It was a Jeep, and the proceeds all went to drinking in one way or another. And funny enough, I just needed to share this, is that the person who I sold the Jeep today is a deputy governor, and he's followed my story because we've bumped into each other. And because he knew how I used to drink then, he has been able to link quite a number of people who today are in recovery. So there were extremes. I sold vehicle, what do you call it? I spent rent, you know, on alcohol. I neglected my duties even as a mother. So extremes are there. And I like what Reverend has said. It is good that there's partnerships or collaborations with the church and the people who are in the community, because I have come to witness that as well as a very functional approach. I have been able to see what they call the Office of the Spouse of the Deputy President is at the forefront as well in the community. And through the Association of Pentecostals and the clergy, who I have witnessed in ground where I operate, partner with communities. And because the church, you find the pastors and the bishops, etc., are people who are trusted in the community. They are also using their churches as places where people who are living with addictions can come, number one, get spiritual nourishment, number two, get physical nourishment. Many people who are drinking, nutrition is the last thing. They're not eating.
True, they're not eating.
And when I was doing that, I was the skinniest. I was just sharing my photos. I used to be a size 1. Because my priority was I would drink and I'd pop my supplements because I wanted beautiful skin. I didn't want to age, but I didn't eat. You know, so the approach in the community, like I said, there's also the physical, the eating, and then there's they've incorporated counselors, and they're walking this journey, and they have brought on board the Nyumba Kumi people, and because the community is responsible. And I believe the vision is to replicate such a model. It's happening in Githunguri. It's happening in Thika, even where Her Excellency Pastor Dorcas Rigathi was brought up in the slums of Kiandutu. Those are the stories that give you hope that with existing organizations, could be faith-based, with the teachers, with even organizations like KOTU or FKE, you can be able to reach to the people and offer valuable initiatives to help those people in addiction. Many people are in denial. Even as I was not eating and I was prioritizing the drink, many people would share their concerns. But I didn't see a problem with it. I didn't. So the turnaround was more of now admitting that I had a problem. That so many things had gone so wrong. And I turned to God. And I remember in January, I just told God, you know what? We cannot continue like this. And I keep saying maybe it's an exposure in a rehab where I would go talk about nutrition. And I perhaps sat in on a 12-step program. And I had people share their stories. And I said, oh my goodness, is that me? I thought I was the only one. So many people are going through extremes, or they're doing extremes, and they're so ashamed yet. Those are signs of a brain disease. Those are, it's standard. Let me speak. Mulevi wa Kenya, Los Angeles, Qatar, is the same. The habits are the same.
That's true.
You will do anything for your drink. Things will deteriorate and you don't notice. So what we are saying is, I'm happy NACADA is coming on strong. I have to admit also that there's an association, APRAC, Addictions Prevention and Rehabilitation Association of Kenya, where I met Catherine. That, because people are asking, what is the alternative? APRAC and the spaces they have is sober free. Are you looking for alternatives? Because everywhere is laden with promotions of alcohol. People are looking for a sober space. I went for a sober function, and many people, it's discreet, obviously. You can come in and you bond and you share. And she happened to just speak on that day, and I said, wow, I like this. So if we can also promote alternatives, can we have more sober living or sober spaces? And can we also encourage corporates, encourage government? You know, it's commendable that our president is at the forefront against the fight.
Very keen on
and that's why the executive orders are in the office of the deputy president, ensuring that something has to be done. Those are suggestions or solutions that you can give to the youth, so that if it is not sherehe, where can I come to? And in each community, there's free land, there's some community land. Can we utilize, can we focus on sports? Can we focus on the arts? I'm telling you, once you deviate or accept that you have a problem, within us, we are passionate about something. Within us, we have power to take back.
And goals and purpose.
Exactly. And we have purpose. So if we can be able to do that in communities, in support of all stakeholders, non-state, state, CBOs, NGOs, I believe we are going far, and engage the youth, engage the families, so that we also have practical solutions. Something that will work in Western Kenya may not work in Nyanza, or something that works in a certain area, or even a target group of people. You know, the other day we were saying, why not have interventions for pilots and have interventions for these medical doctors, because they are the ones in treatment, but there are many who are in denial that they have an addiction. If you can target, and NACADA can spearhead that, whereby you bring in different professionals and the lived experiences. When someone can come and say, I went through this and I overcame, I tell you, many people are like, I can relate, I can relate. Then in the Middle East, you have professionals. In the Middle East, you have treatment facilities, or even inpatient, outpatient solutions. You can be able to solve some of these challenges that we are facing in the community, and then have the government work with us, put more funding in here, because it is a crisis. If we don't do something about it now, there'll be a problem. And finally, let me just talk about the advertisements. My friend, I will tell you today, the number of influencers on TikTok, on Facebook, who do not take alcohol. That is where I take offense. People who don't drink alcohol, never tasted it, but are promoting it because of the money. Let us focus on people first. Put people first. As you advertise that product, you probably have children. They're seeing. Children don't need to be told this is alcohol, but the environment, there are studies that are showing unconsciously a child who is brought up in an environment of alcohol by the age of 4 can already, by the age of 4, they already know what that is, and may kids now use alcohol in the future. So if we can also do what you said, demand reduction, or is it the supply suppression through laws, through legislation, through enforcement, so that that 300-meter rule can be enforced, so that when it comes to advertising, let us ban the advertisement. Ghana has done it. Since 2015, no known personality can advertise or be associated with a brand that causes harm. Let's do it here. Because when someone sees their idol or their celebrity or someone of influence do something,
it's
they
very
will
easy for them to be sold.
be saying, just do it. It's okay. Yet, there are consequences to health. There's cancer, there's diabetes, there's mental health disorders, there's so many things. But together, as working in collaboration, we can do so much. We can
actually do so much. I mean, and I'm totally in agreement with that. We literally have 8 minutes to go, okay? So, Catherine, you'll try as much as possible just to be brief on the same. In terms of, again, we talked about multiple drugs. Very quickly, what are some of those common ones? And also speak a little bit on approach. So then how, like we said, understanding that addiction is a disease in the first place is a good point to start. So then how do families approach? How do families support, you know, their loved one and friends as well? And then if time allows, we can talk about then prevention. What do we do? Yes, we're talking about it here, but what more do we need to do? And Chair, I'd also want you to comment.
I do have
you know,
some to
comment. Okay, sorry. So Catherine, very quickly, and then we'll give Chair as well the chance.
All right. Thank you very much. I think with this conversation, generally, I have hope. And NACADA is doing a lot. CATHA and communities, organizations like her are doing a lot. I think if there's anything I'm happy about is the current administration. You can see there's the goodwill to really fight the issue of drug and substance abuse in the country. But that said, we also still get to see a lot of common abuse drugs. Alcohol leads, you know, and what is sad, besides us knowing alcohol is the one that is commonly abused, looking at the number of people that die out of alcohol use annually, 3 million globally. 2020, 2021, when we were wavering through COVID, there was a lot of investment, a lot of public health concern about management of this condition? Why is it that we don't have investment, funding that is coming into prevention and treatment? So alcohol, tobacco, cigarette, this and marijuana, they seem to be the entry drug for most of the people, and then they can graduate to using heroin. Now we have crack cocaine in the country. Commonly among the youth, we have the vapes, you know, very camouflaged. People cannot even look at this as a drug.
That's a better alternative to cigarettes, smoking.
Yeah, nobody will know. You know, you don't even smell smoke. Yeah, which is very common among the young people, and it's a growing concern. And what is sad is that it's not just the nicotine. Many people will go to the extent of lacing it with many other things. Before, we never used to have people going into rehabilitation because of use of mirror, but now we are seeing a growing number that are getting there. And what is sad, it comes in with psychosis, mental health, and substance use. The statistics have given us about depression.
Yes. And
you know, being a very common correlated condition. What's sad with substance use, you will get somebody has an alcohol problem or a drug problem, but they're also battling depression, they're also battling bipolar, they're battling anxiety, they're battling schizophrenia, which is a combination of, you know, too many things for somebody to really be able to deal with. And many a times you will hear people say rehabilitation doesn't work. It works, treatment works, but at times we may miss a step of not doing a proper diagnosis, of establishing beyond the alcohol, which is what we can see, which is the problem behavior that is on the surface. What are the traumas that these people have gone through? And in the families, you know, you find somebody is coming from an abusive family. A young person is coming from a family where there is separation and divorce, there is abuse, there is domestic violence, there is lack, you know, and it's also an environment where we can see crime and everything all along. And people don't factor that as one of the underlying causes as to why people get into it. So while we have new drugs that are coming in the market, the other day there was the worry in the country that fentanyl was here. Lucky for us, that is not the case, because I don't think we are prepared to deal with the crisis. The West is still grappling with that. So once we get to look at why are people getting into this problem, step by step we'll be able to look at, so what are the solutions that we get to have there. So from a public health perspective, I'll look at, can we have more resources invested in addressing the issue of drug and substance abuse? Can we have programs at school that sensitize the young people? It's integrated in the curriculum, but more needs to be done. Because a young person, when looking at the academic performance, when you're looking at building their sense of self-esteem, self-worth, learning life skills, this limits the possibility of them getting into drugs. When we have people involved in activities, sports, I know there's a certain program in, I think, Maringo area, where young people were able to stop using drugs because they were involved in football. You know, can we look at the corporates investing in programs that are taking away the youth in doing meaningful activities. At the family level, because families, we look at addiction as a family disease, not just as an individual brain disease. Because when I'm sick, I'm a child, my mom will be accused by my dad that mtoto wako, angalia mtoto wako. So you see, that's already creating a family problem. When a child is failing, it's like the mother's responsibility. Or when a father is using, what is happening to the kids? If this father is using, comes home, is very violent. So the kids will have to adjust, sleep early, become this cowed, you know, they cannot even learn to express and talk about their problems, especially if they're coming from affluent families. This is our issue. We keep it under wraps. Let's not talk about it.
The image of the
protect the image of the family. So families will need to have such conversations, know the signs, know the symptoms, and know this person is sick.
Deep issues and what exactly is
happening. If we don't acknowledge we have a problem, then there is no way in which there is a solution that is going to be.
I hear you. I like that. And I'm so sorry for rushing you because time is not on our side. Literally have 2 minutes. So I'm going to give you a chair in the last minute in terms of then what solutions look like from NACADA's point of view. There was one of the recommendations that said We need to enhance collaboration again, which we've talked about. We've talked about investments as well. County governments also taking, a part and taking the lead in the same. There's one of the things that said leniency, right? Like this punishments are very lenient. We need to do something to strengthen the same. So very quickly, in like 2 minutes, as we end the conversation, what exactly do we need to do now that we understand the gaps, the problems, that are facing the fight as far as drug abuse is concerned?
Thank you, Winnie. I think what I would want to tell Kenyans is there's hope.
Yeah.
The government is putting in a lot of effort in this. And what I would like to challenge all of us is to join in. It can, we can go to a blame game very easily. These people are not doing their work, these are not doing their work, but I would say let's all join in.
Okay.
If you see, for example, the rules are, the laws are very clear. 300-meter rule. There should be no bar next to a school. Nyumba Kumi, the chiefs and the people who live there should just take up. I use the Kijabe example most of the time to say, they said, in our community, we will not allow this. And they succeeded. And that's good. Because the OCS there is a public servant. The chief there is a public servant. We can, as a community, come together and say, we will not allow this in our community. We will do our part in the supply suppression. I can tell you that is in way. In fact, even the drug barons, I want to challenge them and say, do another business.
But what about the businesses? Because someone actually said, very quickly commented and said, yes, we're talking about the war, but then again, we have these industries that are making the same, alcohol, and they're paying heavy taxes.
Yeah, sure. For the businesses that are selling alcohol that are licensed, those have gone through Kenya Bureau of Standards.
Okay.
And the alcohol content is not as bad. Again, they will tell you it has its effect, but from the KBS, we are told that it is safer. So we are not after that. What we are going after are those who are selling illicit. And then those who are bringing in drugs. They should just do other businesses because this is not the place. Kenya is going to be very unsafe for them. And we want to thank those who are involved in helping us with the treatment. I think that is a very key thing. We'll do a lot of public education. We are working with schools. We are working with the Ministry of Health. And we just are calling on every Kenyan to rise up. This is the best, by the way, if I'm to say. I was a board member in 2016, 2017 in NACADA. Now I'm the chair. I can tell you the environment is very different now. We have the political goodwill. I think this is the best time to win this war, and we are going to give it our best.
All right, Chana, sema kazi imeanza. Okay, all right, but thank you so much to discuss, so very little time. But again, this is just a start of a very important conversation. So please come back again so that we can focus on the same. Again, we want to discuss about rehabilitation centers. Chair, you mentioned that we have very few. We only have one that is NACADA funded, and others that are private, institutions, but still not enough. So then what is it that we need to do as well so that we address this issue? But allow us to put a pause here. We're not saying goodbye, but we're putting a pause. So please come back again so that we can discuss. I know, Nkatha, you had a lot to say, Catherine, as well. But thank you so much really for coming by today. Again, we were looking at, drugs and, addictions and abuse on alcohol, narcotics, prescription medication. And is this a headache for Kenya? We can all agree. Yes, it is. So we need to find solutions. And special thanks to Reverend Dr. Stephen Mairori for coming by this morning. NACADA Board Chair, Catherine Muthiani, counseling psychologist, very important point and insights you've given us this morning, and Nkatha Mwenda, founder, Sober Living Youth Summit. Thank you for sharing your story and also being part of solutions. What do we do? So we put a pause. We'll see you very soon. Again, hopefully, please accept to come back. But for now, we're saying goodbye right here on AM Live. My name is Winnie Lubembe, but do not go anywhere. I'm going to see you in the next few minutes on Your World, and we'll be tackling suicide prevention. So see you shortly.